Reversing Alzheimer's. Whoa, okay, Dr. Sandison, you got my attention. I mean, that title alone, right? What's your take?
It's definitely bold, no question. I think it really highlights how different her whole approach is, compared to the way we usually talk about Alzheimer's.
Yeah, usually it's all about slowing things down, managing the symptoms. Nobody's really saying reverse it.
Right, exactly. The traditional medical model. Kind of a bleak picture, honestly. Dr. Sandison's basically flipping the script.
And it sounds like her personal journey plays a big role in that.
Huge. Imagine being in med school, basically being told treating Alzheimer's is like pointless, a lost cause. That's what she was up against.
Wow, no kidding. So what changed? What convinced her that reversal was even on the table?
It was a few things coming together, really. Like, there was this groundbreaking research by Dr. Dale Breedson at UCLA showing actual cognitive improvement in patients.
Not just stopping it, but getting better.
Yep. And they were using this whole different approach, multifaceted, not just one drug or anything.
So more like a whole toolkit than a magic bullet.
That's a great way to put it. And this wasn't just theory either. Remember her patient, Nancy?
Oh, yeah, the one who went from, what was it, having trouble with her taxes to rocking those purple dresses? Didn't she ditch assisted living too?
Totally. The protocol literally turned her life around.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's definitely not just talk. There are real results happening.
Okay, color me intrigued. So break it down for me. What's in this protocol? What are the key things she's talking about?
So she uses this analogy of the brain as a country. She calls it my brain is Stan.
Mm-hmm.
Cute, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it works.
I like it.
So the protocol is like this 6-part plan, almost like, sharing up the defenses, boosting the economy, all that.
Okay, I'm sold. Hit me with those 6 parts. What's number 1?
Taming the toxins.
Oh.
And this goes way beyond just what you're eating, though. We'll get there. It's really about reducing inflammation.
Inflammation, so that's bad for your whole body, but especially your brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think of it like this constant drain on resources, It makes everything harder for your brain to function.
Makes sense. So what kind of stuff causes this brain drain?
It's kind of a mix of internal and external factors. We're talking chronic stress, bad sleep. You'd be surprised. Even something like gum disease can set off inflammation that messes with the brain.
Whoa, really? A gum disease? I never made that connection.
Right. It's wild how connected everything is.
Okay, so that's what we're trying to avoid. But what about giving brain a stand, the good stuff it needs? What's next?
Okay, so that's where we get into nutrient powerhouse. This is where what you eat comes in big time. Dr. Sandison, she really breaks down this specific stuff our brains need.
So, not just eat your vegetables, but actual brain-boosting ingredients.
Totally. And it gets really interesting because our brains have a favorite fuel source. And it's not what you might think.
Ooh, okay, now you've got to tell me, what is it? How do we get more?
Or buckle up, because it's keto curiosity time.
Keto, like the diet.
You got it. But hold on, it's not just about fitting into your skinny jeans here.
Okay, I'm listening.
There's real science behind how a ketogenic diet, so high in good fats, low in carbs, it can actually change what your brain uses for fuel.
Instead of sugars and stuff, it switches to
Ketones. Basically becomes this super efficient energy source, especially for aging brains. Less inflammation, more power. Pretty cool.
Wow, okay, so we're fighting inflammation on 2 fronts now. This is fascinating. But we're only on point 2, right? What comes after that?
Number 3 on the list is stress, the Goldilocks problem.
Stress, the Goldilocks problem. Okay, I'm all ears. Because, I don't know, isn't stress, always bad when we're talking about brains?
It's tricky, right? Because, too much stress, definitely not our friend. Cortisol city, brain cells are freaking out. But here's the thing, Dr. Sandison, she's saying too little isn't great either.
Wait, seriously? How's that even work?
It's like, without any challenge, our brains kind of get lazy, complacent, like a muscle, gotta use it or you lose it.
So it's about finding that balance, just the right amount to keep things humming.
Exactly. The Goldilocks zone of stress. Enough to keep the brain engaged, learning, adapting, but not so much that we're, fried.
Right, makes sense. So how do we actually do that, walk that tightrope?
Well, that's where all the good stuff comes in, right?
Yeah.
Mindfulness practices, exercise, having good people around you makes a huge difference too.
It's all connected, building those healthy habits so we can actually handle stress when it inevitably pops up.
100%. Okay, ready for number 4 on the list. This one's called Structure Matters.
All right, structure matters. Lay it on me. What are we talking about here?
So this one kind of surprised me when I first read about it, but it makes so much sense. It's basically acknowledging that the physical structure of our brains, it all plays a role.
Okay, so not just what's going on inside the brain, but the actual physical stuff.
Exactly. So, Your genes obviously play a part. Can't really change those, but knowing what we're working with helps, right? And then there's past injuries, even way back.
Like if you played football in high school or something.
Exactly. Dr. Sandison talks about research linking head trauma to a higher risk of Alzheimer's, even decades later. It's kind of wild.
Wow, I had no idea it could be that long term.
It's crazy, right? And then, get this, even something like sleep apnea, where you stop breathing at night.
Yeah, isn't that super common?
Really common. But people don't realize it affects your brain too, not just your sleep.
Huh. Okay, so structure matters. It's like taking care of the whole machine from the inside out.
Think of it like maintaining a car, right? Got to keep the engine running smoothly and make sure the chassis isn't about to fall apart.
Perfect analogy. All right, what's up next on Dr. Sandison's list?
Number 5 is all about infection invaders. And this one's huge.
Okay, infection invaders. It sounds kind of scary, not gonna lie.
A little bit, yeah. But knowledge is power, right? So basically, we tend to think of infections like, oh, you get the flu or maybe Lyme disease, something like that. And it's this isolated thing.
Right, you get over it and you're good.
Exactly. But Dr. Sandison, she's really highlighting how these infections, they can actually have lasting effects on the brain.
Even if you're like totally better.
It's not always that simple, unfortunately. See, a lot of these infections, they trigger this whole body inflammatory response. And guess who's part of the party?
The brain. Right, we were just talking about how much inflammation hates the brain.
Ding, ding, ding. And this isn't just like theoretical either. There's more and more evidence showing that even things like viruses, even COVID, it can have consequences for your brain down the line.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely a little scary. But important to know. Makes you want to really prioritize your immune system, right?
For sure. And not just for right now, but for the long haul. All right, ready for the 6th and final element of Dr. Sandison's plan?
Hit me with it. What's the last piece of the puzzle?
Last, but definitely not least, we have signaling secrets. We're going deep into the world of hormones for this one.
Hormones. Okay, so I usually think of those more like mood swings, hot flashes, that kind of stuff. Not necessarily brain power.
Yeah, we usually don't connect those dots, do we? But hormones, they're like these little messengers, right? And they're running around your body, telling your cells what to do. Super important for pretty much everything, including your brain.
So as we get older and those hormone levels change, that messes with our brains too.
Bingo. Dr. Sandison talks about how imbalances in key hormones like estrogen, testosterone, thyroid, even cortisol, they can all contribute to cognitive decline.
Wow, it's like a whole other level of complexity. It's not just about like, oh, I need more of this hormone. It's about the whole system working together, right?
100%. It's about understanding that delicate balance and how to support it as we age.
This is fascinating. Dr. Sandison really thought of everything, huh? But I'm curious, how do we take all of this and actually apply it to our lives? Like, she talks about the ideal week concept in the book that really resonated with me.
Oh, I love that part. And it's so key because her whole thing is, you don't need a total life overhaul. Small, sustainable changes, that's where the magic happens.
Small changes, big impact, huh? I can get on board with that. So what does this ideal week actually look like? What are some of the things Dr. Sandison highlights?
Yeah, she starts with no surprise here, keto curiosity.
Right, because ketones, that whole brain fuel thing we were talking about, but is she saying like everyone needs to go full keto all the time?
Nah, it's not that intense. It's more like an invitation to experiment, See how you feel when you bring more healthy fats into your diet. Maybe try a modified keto thing for a bit, see if it works for you.
Okay, so it's not all or nothing, got it. What else is on this ideal week schedule for our brains?
Movement is a biggie. And not just hitting the gym for an hour, but like really weaving it into your day. She calls it movement as medicine.
So more than just like a brisk walk around the block.
Way more. She's really into this dual task training, basically challenging your brain while your body's moving, like learning a new language while you're on a walk or doing some mindful meditation while you're gardening.
Oh, I've actually been trying that. I listen to language learning podcasts while I walk, and it's crazy how much more I remember.
See, it totally works. And of course, we can't forget about sleep. Dr. Sandison calls it building your sleep sanctuary.
Sanctuary. I like that. It sounds so much more intentional than just like making sure you get 8 hours.
It really is. Because it's not just about the number of hours, right? She dives deep into things like, is there mold in your bedroom? What's your air quality like? Even down to electromagnetics.
Electro what now? Okay, I gotta admit, some of this stuff is news to me.
It's about fine-tuning your environment to really support restful sleep, which we know is crucial, right? For everything, but especially those precious brain cells.
Totally. This is making me want to do a whole sleep makeover. Okay, what's the final piece of this ideal week puzzle?
This one might be the most important of all, actually. She calls it meaningful moments.
Okay, intriguing. What's that about?
It's recognizing that having a purpose, feeling connected to something bigger, experiencing joy, that stuff matters just as much as any diet or supplement.
So it's not just about, like, brain games and blueberries. There's a deeper level to it.
Exactly. Nurturing those relationships, spending time doing things you love, finding your purpose. It's not just good for the soul, it's good for your brain.
I love that. It really brings it all together, you know? But what about people who, like, they hear all this and they're overwhelmed? Or maybe they're skeptical?
She talks about that a lot, actually,
Yeah.
because it's easy to get stuck in that resistance, you know? So one of her big things is communicating the why, focusing on shared goals.
So instead of you need to do this, it's more like, we both want you to be healthy and happy. How do we get there together?
Nailed it. It's about meeting people where they are and finding ways to make these changes feel doable, even fun.
That makes so much sense. What about the more practical stuff, like finding a doctor who gets all this, or those other therapies we touched on?
Right, so she's got a whole section on professional partnerships, building a team that's on the same page as you. She even gives resources for finding those breeds and trained doctors. And then there's the alternative stuff, like peptide treatments.
Peptides. You mentioned those before, but I gotta be honest, I don't really know what they are.
Basically, they're like these tiny little messengers that tell your cells what to do. And there's some exciting research on how they might help with brain function, inflammation, even brain cell regeneration.
Wow, okay, so that's next level stuff. But it's cool that Dr. Sandison's approach includes both, right? Like the lifestyle changes, these cutting edge treatments.
Totally. Because everyone's different, right? Her whole message is about empowering people to be their own advocate, to explore all the options and figure out what works for them.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to walk away with?
Dr. Sandison says it best, I think. Don't wait for a diagnosis to start investing in your brainosphere. We have so much more control than we realize, and it's never too early or too late to start making those brain-healthy choices.
It's a hopeful message, you know? It's not about fear, it's about taking action.
100%.
Well, this has been amazing. Seriously, so much to think about, and hopefully our listeners feel the same way. It's inspiring to know we can make a difference with our brain health, no matter what our genes say or how old we are.
Couldn't agree more. This conversation about brain health is just getting started, and it's only going to get more exciting from here.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into reversing Alzheimer's.
Wow.
And to all our listeners, until next time, keep those brain A stands happy and healthy.